Are you one of the millions who have seen this video on YouTube? Or have signed a petition like this one on change.org? Have you seen or even forwarded a campaign like the Unfriend Coal campaign on Facebook? Do you remember this guy's TED Talk about an inconvenient truth? Well, then you have seen environmental online activism in action, in these cases on climate change. So what is the potential of computer-mediated communication for environmental activism? With the use of CMC, environmental activism is assumed to become more inclusive, more democratic, and more global. And indeed, more and more people across the globe do have internet access, and CMC can in fact give formerly marginalized groups a voice and empower them to take local action. But how realistic are these assumptions about environmental online activism really? Firstly, the internet penetration in the global north is significantly higher than in the global south, with, for example, close to 80% in the US and Europe, and between 30 and 45% in Africa and Asia. And the other half of the Earth's population that could theoretically participate in online activism is far from representative of the other half, both in nationality and social background. Secondly, most international environmental organizations were founded in Western societies, which is also where the dominating understanding of environmentalism is constructed. If the practiced form of environmentalism across the globe is currently mostly Western, how global and democratic can environmental activism really be, even if excluding the obstacle of limited internet access? This is of course not meant to say that there is one homogenic Western approach to environmentalism that always opposes or suppresses that of countries in the global south. But the fact remains that much of the environmental work in developing countries is initiated and led by groups from Western societies, which will be informed by an environmental philosophy that is based on the context of a Western society and which tends to favor environmental over developmental goals. Assuming that environmental online activism still has work to do in order to become a truly global, inclusive and democratic movement, the question becomes whether that is the type of environmentalism that will succeed in preserving this planet for future generations and, of course, for its own sake. Greenpeace, for example, originated in Canada and has currently offices in 55 countries all over the world. Greenpeace has made a palpable difference and done amazing work in and across many of these countries. When expanding to Brazil, however, the NGO encountered some difficulties. The Brazilian team, consisting of local activists and working with local communities, took a socio-environmentalist approach to its projects, which means that they wanted to find a middle ground between enabling social and economic growth and protecting the environment. For example, with regard to local communities whose livelihood depended on the work they did for logging companies. This more inclusive and democratic approach clashed with the philosophy of older Greenpeace branches that believed that saving the environment has first priority and that environmental activism needs to be done in the most effective ways possible in order to be successful, which often means not taking a political stand or adapting to the social implications of their work. Developmental and environmental aims are often at odds with each other. Allowing environmental activism to develop locally and in a democratic bottom-up fashion is likely to result in less effective pro-environmental practices and policies, which is why Greenpeace follows a different strategy. But is it justifiable to stagnate a country's development and potentially leave people in poverty in order to save the environment? Should environmental activism have the liberty to ignore its social implications for the sake of protecting the physical nature? Is it okay to employ CMC as a tool for effective online activism without trying to fulfill its democratic and empowering potentials? Is the environmental philosophy of a Western environmental activist group more valid than that of the country they are doing their work in? Some statistics say that if we keep on doing what we're doing, in 2030 we will need 2 Earths to sustain our lifestyle. We will also have destroyed half of the Amazonian rainforest. By 2050, there will be more plastic than biomass in our oceans. And up to 1/2 of all plant and animal species will face extinction due to global warming. There will also be no ice left in the Arctic. What it boils down to is that we don't know whether there's enough time to do what's necessary in the right, meaning a socially fair, inclusive and democratic way. But we also don't know whether that is the only way to successfully save the environment to begin with.